Hello, I am Dave Mack and welcome to another tips and tricks guide for TEW IX. Today what we're going to be looking at is how we can get the most out of our pre and post show segments that we can book on a weekly basis in TEW IX. Now to start off, I should say some people may look at this as slightly gaming the system. I know some people like to play very realistically and like it is an absolute real world situation. What I will say is some of it might look a little bit like gaming the system. I do think you can also do it in a realistic way, so you're not just basically spamming the life out of it. And these tips should hopefully give us an idea of what we can get out of the extra time we get on a weekly basis, because I'm using an AEW mod here, a modern day one. What we're getting is 1 hour of pre-show and half an hour of post-show segments we can use. So there's a lot of time that we can put into, and a lot of time that we've got available to us that we've got real complete control over, that we can make it a little bit more worthwhile to us in the long run in playing a game on TEW IX. I'm going to try and keep this one quick because I think there's just a few tips here we can go through. So firstly, what I should say, your pre and post show segments have absolutely no bearing on what your product is at all. So what I mean by that is we could put an hour of interviews before this and it would not count towards what the expected amount of ratio of matches to segments would be, for example. So it'll have absolutely no effect on your booking analysis whatsoever, so we can really kind of use those to our advantage. What I would say, so tip number one, what I would use them for is pay-per-views. The easiest way to tank your backstage morale is by having really annoyed wrestlers that are going on. What we want to do is we want to kind of keep this as happy as possible. We've got negative influences, etc, etc. One way to annoy a wrestler, keep them off a pay-per-view. So what I tend to do with our pre-show and our post-show on pay-per-views is this is a great way of getting loads of those kind of mid to lower mid-carders and some of those jobbers that are never really involved in any of the storylines that you've got going on. This is a great opportunity to stick them out there, put them in matches that are kind of throwaway, but it gets them out there, it gets them their kind of payday that they're looking for. I think back in the old days, WWE used to be very, very good at this. What they used to do is give loads of people paydays because you get your royalties from the show, and they try to get as many people on the pay-per-views as possible. I don't think they do this quite as much now, but that's kind of what they want to do. So one of mine would be fill it up with wrestlers you can do. And what I tend to do, this is something that I got from on the TEW website, on the forums there, is there's loads of other matches. You can do battle royals and things like this, that we can look at all of the different matches available to us, and what we can do is you can have a 10, 20, 30 man battle royal, which is an absolutely killer way of getting loads and loads of guys on the card, and it gives them something to do. They get that payday, they're out there. What I also tend to do is I would do a 30 man battle royal, a 20 man battle royal, however many I've kind of got left over. I would stick them all in a battle royal in the pre-show, and my road agent notes, I'd leave that completely blank. We'd see who the winner is, and then whoever comes out as the winner, I tend to challenge myself is, can we stick them on to the next pay-per-view in the actual main show? So I kind of use it as a way of just giving someone a bit of a random push, and it gives me a little bit of a challenge to go, okay, so how do we get that person in there? But it's a great way of just filling up. We've got a 90 minutes here of post and pre-show that we can just fill up with guys to get them on pay-per-views, which I think is a really useful thing for the morale backstage, and it helps just keep everyone kind of happy. Number two is what I would say, and I can't look at it now, is just development. We've got Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor is the AEW development brand here, so I can send guys down there, and that's really useful. We know that the development system can work quite well. They get sent down there, they're having matches, but we're kind of left in the lap of the gods of what they want to do in that brand and whatever your development is, so we don't really know what's going on. So I think what we can also use our pre and post show for is a hands-on development program. So do you know what, we can start booking angles with guys out there, we can start booking matches and really start pushing the people that we want. So if we decide we have someone out there, so say I've got some really good talent that I want to push, so I've got, you know, let's have a look who we could put in there. I've got Anthony Ogogo, for example. Maybe I'm going to look at him and go, do you know what, Anthony Ogogo is the next big thing as far as I'm concerned. Now, I could send him off to my development, and we never really know what's going to happen to him down there. Along here, I can start pairing him up with the veterans I've got. I can put him in matches with veterans to really push him along. I can put him in tag matches with veterans. So I might not want Anthony Ogogo on my main show. I might not want him turning up on AEW Dynamite every week. But this is a really good way for me to use it as a kind of development brand within AEW to just start pushing exactly who I want, putting them out there. I can stick him alongside some really good talkers. We've got people who might come down there, and now this is when people might start looking at this and going, well, that's a little bit unrealistic. I would say if you're that concerned with things staying true to real life, do you know what, I've been to TV show tapings, and you will get some of the top wrestlers will come out and cut a promo. I've been to Raws and had John Cena come out to hype the crowd. There's nothing for me to say that maybe MJF would come out in a pre-show segment, hype the crowd up, and maybe I'm sticking Anthony Ogogo with him in that, for example. So I think if you want to keep it true to life and you want to have in your own headcanon that you're not just trying to game the system to give him overinflated stats eventually, I think what we're trying to do is you're kind of developing people, and it's just a more hands-on approach. So what I tend to do is I keep those guys that I want to develop, and I see I've got more control over it in the pre and the post show, so I can stick them in their matches. I can put him in with the Young Bucks, for example, and get a win. And a lot of the stuff that's going on in the pre and the post show, wrestlers are a lot more agreeable to taking losses and things like that. So it's a really good way of developing the styles that you want to develop and how you want to develop them. We've got an hour and a half, as I said, in every show here to really start pushing those. So instead of sending them off to a developmental brand and they become a little bit lost in the shuffle maybe and don't get the matches that you want, or are wrestling other developing wrestlers, which isn't great, I can stick my guys into matches, into situations that really suit me. And third and final one is I use it as a kind of house show on steroids. House shows are great, and once we get house shows, if you're working a big company like AEW, you get these house shows, and it's really good for firstly generating cash. And also what we do here is the house show booking. The house show booking I used to use as a really good way of kind of trying to find chemistry amongst people, because what I love about TEW is once you start playing into the game, you start seeing good, bad and indifferent chemistry. It starts becoming a bit more interested in who you can book. What I use is kind of, I can use the pre and the post show as like fishing for chemistry, but on steroids really. It's a house show on steroids. How I'll use the house show, for example, is I would start looking at house show booking and going, well, what are my future storyline plans? Maybe in the future I've got, you know, a couple of guys I want to get Adam Cole wrestling, Adam Page, and we're going to see if they have any chemistry as far as being opponents. Now, what I am really looking for with the house show circuit, because we need to have, as we says here, we've got to have 4 or 5 house shows before we find out what they're doing. I want to make sure there's no negative chemistry in my future storylines. So if Adam Cole and Adam Page are going to have a match, for example, in a 2 months' time, I want to make sure that I don't put them in a pay-per-view and they have negative chemistry. What I tend to use the house show booking for much less is trying to find random chemistry, but what we can use is our pre and post show for doing that. And a great way of doing things there is if we again look at all the match types we've got, we reset this, we can, for example, set out multiple tag team matches, multi-man tag matches where we've got 2 versus 2 versus 2, so we've got 4 tag teams there. What we can do is we can set out 4 random tag teams to really fish to see if we've got any random chemistry out there. We can start using the pre and the pro show to also throw different announcing teams in there, so you've got different announcers, so we'd go in there and we'd start looking at what our commentators, who we can start building up their experience, because this is a load of wrestling time that we're not being judged on for the main show. We're not going to get judged on these things, so we can really start using this to find out those things that we'd have found on a house show, but instead we're doing it in a much quicker way. So that one match, if we stick all these random tag teams together in this one match, we can put anyone out there what we want, and we start going, oh, actually we found out much quicker than the 5-6 house shows that would have taken to got there. We can start booking people to have random managers that you might want to test out, and just trying to really fish around for that kind of stuff, because you know what, I don't think there's anything wrong with treating the pre and the post show a little bit like a house show, in the sense that stuff's going to happen that wouldn't happen on the main show, but kind of can make sense. So for me, in my own headcanon, it works perfectly fine if we see someone coming out with a random manager, or we put some random people on commentary. It's a good place to test out new commentators. It's a good place to get your B commentating shows a little bit more experience and start finding out if you've got any commentators that have good chemistry when together. So it's a really good way of just kind of fishing for that chemistry really super quick and finding out. And that, as I say, we've got 90 minutes in every show. I mean, for me on AEW, this is like 3 hours a week of just time I can just play around with guys to see what we're getting. Now, what I would say is I don't book that way on every single show and throw out looking for random chemistry all the time, or throw out loads of different combinations, because it would take forever to book that way. But do you know what it does give me the opportunity to is I have a lot of time. I can go in there and have a look and just start doing things that I maybe go, oh, do you know what, I'll test that out, see if that's going to work really quickly, and we can start picking up from there. So that for me is my 3 main tips and how I kind of use the pre and post show. I use it, 1, for keeping my wrestlers happy, to get them on the show without putting them in the main show, which is a really good one. 2, we use it as our own little development. We can start developing a few of those talents that we want to get out there. Do you know what, if we want to push someone, stick them in with all your big names, get them up there, and they don't have to be on the main show, which is really good. And the 3rd one is we're using it like a house show on steroids. It is giving us that information right here, right now. We can start looking for stuff, really fishing for those bits of chemistry, seeing if we've got any good matchups coming. What I would say with that is I don't book anything huge. So the house show circuit traditionally has tried stuff out. I wouldn't be sticking Will Ospreay and MJF, for example, in a match in a pre-show, because it's unrealistic. We wouldn't see that. However, that might be something I would look at on a house show circuit, for example. So I try and keep it fairly realistic, but I think at the time there's just a lot of time there to use, and I think not everyone utilises it. We kind of throw out some random matches and we try and, you know, get the crowd to where we want for when the show starts. But it's a really good function within TEW 9 where we can actually start really putting it to work and getting it to improve the wrestlers how we want. If you have any other suggestions or any other ways that you use your pre and your post pre and post shows, let me know. Stick it in the comments. I'd love to know. I'm always learning. I don't think I'm any sort of TEW expert. I just read a lot and I try a lot of different things out. But there's loads of different things we can do with the pre and post show. And what do you do? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and a subscription. And hopefully see you again very soon. Catch you later.